Welcome to Rewild Your Business. I'm your host, Jill Mokes, and as always, I am so grateful to have you here with me. Thank you. If you're new here, welcome. I hope you're going to love the podcast. Go back and have a binge. We all love something a bit bingeable, and you have joined. If this is the first time you've listened, brilliant time to stumble across Rewild Your Business, because we are in the middle of a mini-series, a podcast within a podcast, called The Natural Order of Things. And there is an accompanying book that I have written that is my gift to you. So in the show notes, I'm going to put a link to the book, because I know what some of my lovely listeners are doing is they're kind of following along with the book. The book has all the prompts in it. You also get the option just to download worksheets. But this is a really like a working series that we're going through at the moment. It's kind of like an overall audit of your business. If you really want to build and grow a soul-led business, a business that genuinely is the truest expression of who you are and is sustainable and is making you plenty of money, this is the series you want to be following along with. So as always, all of the links go in the show notes. So the book, The Natural Order of Things, so the link to the book is going to be in the show notes, and you can download your copy of that for free right now. Okay, so what are we diving into this week? We are going into your worldview. This is what some people refer to as your thought leadership. It's your original long-form content. It's where you are putting out what you believe in to the world. You're putting out a body of work that positions you as a recognized authority in your thing. Okay, let's dive into the episode. Welcome to Rewild Your Business, the podcast for women doing the work their soul intended. I'm Jill Mokes. I'm an international business coach, and I'm a guide for women doing the work that matters. Rewilding your business means cutting away what doesn't belong to allow what does to thrive, finding simplicity in your work. And it's about bringing the whole of who you are to the table, whether you're building something new or finding your way back to what really matters to you. I'm so glad you're here. So I want to start off by asking you to think about the last piece of content that you consumed that literally made you stop scrolling. Like the one where you just read something and thought, yeah, that. Exactly that. Never heard it put that way before, but oh my gosh, that is exactly what I've been thinking about that thing. Or, wow, that is a really different way to think about that. And that's really got me keeping this on pause for a minute, because I need to process that, right? That moment, that bit of recognition of this is something different, that is what having a worldview does. So it's not just about sharing information. It's not just about teaching or inspiring other people or entertaining them. It's something that makes someone feel seen, because that person has articulated something true in a way that is really distinctively and unmistakably theirs, a way you couldn't get from someone else. Honestly, when I record this podcast, this is what I have in the back of my mind all the time, is like, what is the ultimate truth that I can share with you, but in a way that maybe is going to just nudge something inside you to say, I really like the way Jill explained that, or that's a really different way that Jill has of positioning that thing, right? And that's what I want you to work on this week. So that's what we're looking at in layer 4. This isn't about the content. It's not about a posting strategy, or it's not even about your content pillars and stuff like that, which we're going to come on to when we talk about marketing, when we talk about that speaking up layer. Worldview is something different. It's about your take on your thing, on your area of expertise. It's your opinions, your convictions, the way you see your corner of the world, right? And it's the thing that when you share it consistently and bravely, it's the thing that makes you impossible to ignore. And that's what we're looking for here. That unique positioning, impossible to ignore, impossible to replace, because that is what makes people remember you. It's what makes people come back to you. It's what makes you build an audience of people who like your view of the world. They identify with it, and they're going to keep coming back to learn from you, to be inspired by you, to be entertained by you. But it is really that unique take. So I want to just speak a moment about where this sits in that framework of the natural order of things, because I think this one surprises some people. Your worldview, your thought leadership comes before marketing, before sales, before any of the more visible kind of strategic layers, right? And that is absolutely deliberate, because without a worldview, without understanding what your thought leadership is, then your marketing really has no substance. Your content becomes what, to be honest with you, most content already is. It can be useful, maybe, pleasant, yeah, probably, but honestly, pretty forgettable. White noise, because you definitely don't need me to tell you how noisy the online world already is. But when you have a worldview that you are brave enough to put out there, so this is really your opinions, it's the hills you'll die on, it's the stuff that you genuinely want to be known for. When you have that, everything changes. It feels like your content really has a spine to it. Your message has so much more weight to it, and the people who need you the most can actually find you. That is what having a worldview does. Nothing else will do it quite like having a platform on which you put out consistently your thought leadership in the form of usually some long form content. Maybe it is a podcast, maybe it's, a blog, a YouTube channel, a Substack, but it's certainly not Reels on Instagram. The people who need you most can find you. They can recognize you and choose you. And it isn't because you're showing up more consistently than everyone else. It's not because you're posting more or anything like that. It's because you said something true that potentially no one else was saying, or certainly in a way that no one else was saying it. So if your worldview is your distinctive take on your corner of the world, then how do we find out? How do we uncover what that is? And I think this is really about asking yourself, what do you want to be known for? This isn't the, what do you do? Who do you serve? It's not those questions. It's not the brand question so much of who are you? It's what do you want to be known for? What are your strong opinions? What are the opinions that you have about your arena, your industry, your work? What are the opinions that you would defend in a room full of people who disagreed with you, right? What do you stand for so clearly and consistently that other people could almost tell it on your behalf? That's a really, really important one. That's when you know you've done your job well in terms of communicating your worldview, is if someone else knows exactly what your stance on that is. So for me, you'll hear me talk about relationships over algorithms over and over and over. I do talks on it. It's something I'm really, really passionate about. And it's something that a lot of people would associate me with, right? If they think about me, they would already know that is something that I'm likely going to bring up. And that's important. What is your take, your specific, learned, lived, hard-won perspective on the thing that you work around? So let me give you some examples of my own worldview, because I think whenever I give you examples, it helps make it a little bit more concrete, right? So my worldview is built around a few very core convictions that I have. So the first one is that strategy and soul are not opposite. That is a hill I'll die on. That I believe that the most powerful, sustainable businesses are built when those two things work together, rather than 100% focus on either of them. I really believe that. That's part of my worldview. Another worldview standpoint of mine is about rewilding. This podcast is called Rewild Your Business. I genuinely believe in stripping away what doesn't belong to allow what does to thrive. And it's not actually just a philosophy for business. Like, this is in life. I think that the more simple you can make things, the more you can come back to what's naturally yours and release and let go of what really isn't, the more fulfilling our life is. And certainly, in my experience, the more fulfilling and the more successful our business is. And I've already touched on, relationships matter more than algorithms. Always. I believe that our obsession with reach and follower count and optimized content, it's a distraction from the thing that actually builds our businesses, and that is genuine human connection. Now, none of those things I just listed there, none of those things I talked about are neutral positions. There are some people that will disagree with me, and that's absolutely fine. In fact, that's honestly the whole point. A worldview that doesn't offend anyone and that kind of doesn't challenge anything, it's not a strong worldview. Your worldview should be specific enough that someone can hear it and think, oh God, that's so Jill. That's so you. It should be distinctive enough that it couldn't really have come from anyone else in your space. But it also needs to be so true. It needs to be so deeply, personally true for you so that you could talk about that thing for hours without ever running out of anything to say. Like, I could talk about the philosophy around rewilding our businesses, about working in rhythm with the seasons. You know that if you've heard the last couple of podcasts, I've been talking about the community that I'm launching, The Wild Way, which is all about working in rhythm with the moon cycles, setting our intentions at new moon, releasing and reflecting at full moon. I could talk about rewilding your business until the cows come home, and I would never get bored with it. I mean, you might, to be fair, but I wouldn't. But seriously, there's a massive cost of not having a worldview, right? Because you can share as much content as you like. You might be the most consistent poster on social media that there has ever been. And you might be really good at teaching about your thing, or at coaching around your thing, or at guiding people in the area, in the industry that you work in, right? You might be great at doing that. But if there's nothing that makes your perspective distinctly yours, if there's nothing that makes someone kind of stop and think, yeah, I love that person because she always hits the nail on the head when she talks about this topic, or, only she would put it that way, right? Building over a time into like a body of thought leadership that people associate with you specifically. If you can't do that, if you don't do that, again, it's the white noise thing. It feels a bit cruel, really, to tell you that if you don't have a worldview, you are white noise. However, that is also slightly my worldview, is that there are some things when it comes to building a business, especially when it comes to building a soul-led business, where I believe that people who are building, growing businesses, doing the work that their soul intended for them, doing the work that really matters. I believe that is too important for me to kind of pussyfoot around this and not tell you the truth. Because those are the businesses that I want to see growing in the world. Those are the businesses that I want to see making money so that they are sustainable. So if that means I have to say something that's a bit harsh, that if you don't do this work on really being brave enough to share your worldview, your thought leadership with the world, then you are going to remain somewhat invisible. And it won't be because you're not good enough. It won't be because you don't have the talent or the commitment or any of that kind of thing. It will be because you haven't put a stake in the ground. It could be that you're just saying what everyone else in your industry is saying in kind of the same way. Thanks AI, everyone now is starting to sound a bit the same, like we're kind of weird clones. So I think this is really worth taking some time over and thinking about. Remember, we're working layer by layer through this natural order of things. So far, we've worked through that vision and mindset piece at layer 1. We've worked through that truest expression layer your brand, your personal brand. We've looked at, okay, if that's my personal brand and those are the people I want to serve, what are the soul work offers? What are the right offers for me? Now, with this part, your worldview, we're starting to think about, okay, if those are my soul work offers, how am I going to get them into the hands of the people who need them? And that's why this layer is so important, because I don't want you to be invisible. I don't want you to be white noise. I want the people who need you to be able to discover you. And that's why having a worldview, knowing and understanding what your thought leadership is so important. And I think a fair question is, if having a worldview or understanding what your thought leadership is so important, then why don't more people know that? Why don't more people understand that and create that body of work that really represents their worldview? And I think it's a simple answer. It's fear. It's fear of judgment. Really, it comes down to that every time. It is that simple and that hard, because having a distinctive worldview means taking a position. It means saying things that some people will agree with and some people will disagree with. And it means being willing to be wrong in public. It means being willing to be misunderstood in public. Because to the people who believe something different to your worldview, you are wrong. To the people who believe something different to you, undoubtedly often you will be misunderstood. You may attract criticism alongside the people with whom your stuff resonates. So it means stepping out of all that comfortable middle ground where everyone just nods along and we're all saying mostly the same thing. And it means stepping into that slightly more exposed territory where some people are nodding along, absolutely, but others might start pushing back. And I know that for a lot of the women in my world, women who really care deeply, who are sensitive to how they affect others, women who have often spent a long time making themselves smaller and more palatable, that level of exposure feels genuinely dangerous. And I am not for 1 minute sitting here saying that that is not something to be taken seriously, that it isn't something that we should just put on our big girl pants and not care about. And I think the key thing here is you. If that's how this feels for you, if you're listening to this and saying, yeah, but the thing is, Jill, it's all very well, but I can't bear the thought of having to put something out there that's going to have people kind of shine a spotlight on me and say, why are you saying that? Or why do you think that? I get it. And this is where we loop back to layer one. This is where layer one, inner work, does its work. Because having the courage to share your worldview really openly and consistently is built in exactly the same way as every other kind of courage is built. It's done one moment at a time, one decision at a time, choosing in the moment to be the woman who says the true thing, even if that's not the safe thing. And remember, I think I said this, or something similar in level one, which is that I do believe that the judgment we fear is almost always smaller than the consequence we're living with of playing smaller, of being more palatable, right? The consequence of that is dream robbing, honestly. You might have the most incredible vision for your business, but until you can build like a muscle that courage to have a distinctive worldview, you're going to be restricted. So how do you find your worldview? Because I know that some of you are going to be sitting thinking, I've got to be honest, I don't really know what mine is. Probably been playing it a little bit safe for so long that you're not entirely sure what you would say if you did step out of that comfort zone. And I think that's fair. One thing I have got, and this is on top of the book, The Natural Order of Things, which obviously again, I'll put the link in the show notes. I actually have a really brilliant workbook. It's one that I had as part of my Coaching Business Academy program and my mastery programs. And I'm going to pop a link to that in the show notes because it's a really good workbook for figuring out what your worldview is. What is your thought leadership? But a few things you might want to play around with are, and again, all of this is covered in that workbook, but it's things like, focusing in on your rage and your joy. So what is it in your industry that makes you want to bloody turn the table upside down? What are the things that you see people saying, and they're saying them with absolute confidence and they're repeating them as if they are truths that you know is wrong or incomplete or missing the whole point? And it makes you really, really pissed off. Or what advice gets handed out constantly that you fundamentally just disagree with? Think about what is the thing no one's saying that really does need to be said, right? Those are your rage things. So have a, list them. What are the things that always really annoy you? Because the reason they really annoy you is because they are obviously pointing at something that you really care deeply about, something that you have a real perspective on, a real alternative to. And then on the other side of that is like, where's your joy? What lights you up so completely that you have to stop going on about it for too long? What is the idea or the approach or the way of seeing things that when you talk about it makes you feel most fully like yourself? Because your worldview lives in both of those places. The rage tells you what you're against, the joy tells you what you're for, and together, they come together to tell you what you stand for. Another route to go down when you're thinking about this is your story. So let's go back to layer 2 when we were thinking about, your story, your personal brand, what's brought you to where you are now. Think about, what are the moments where you did something that really went against the grain? When you did choose to do something in a different way to the way everyone else does it. When everyone said, do it this way, and you just did it your way, and you're so glad you did, because otherwise you wouldn't be where you are now. What is that story? Or where you followed maybe the conventional advice and it didn't work for you, and you had to then go and find your own way of doing something. Those kind of decisions are expressions of your worldview. Even if you don't or didn't name them as that at the time, they were moments when your own intuition came to the front and you followed that. And those kind of decisions are really original, powerful material for thinking about your worldview. So go back to those moments and ask yourself, what did I believe in that moment that most people around me didn't? That belief is what's waiting for you to name it. So a worldview isn't just an idea you have that you write a long essay about, right? That you share once. It's really a body of work that represents your worldview, your thought leadership. It's consistently creating content. I'm hesitating to use the word content because that's just so overused, but it's consistently articulating and gathering a set of ideas and perspectives that build over time into this body of work that people associate with you specifically. And honestly, that is the distinction actually between content and thought leadership, because content is something that just fills a space. It's what we think our marketing is. And yes, that's true. Our marketing is partly made up of content if we are doing content marketing, but it's just not the whole story. Without this worldview, that content is going to be pretty spineless. It's going to be pretty lightweight, right? Your thought leadership is what builds your reputation. And honestly, your reputation, a reputation of being the woman who thinks about things in this particular way, is just what makes your marketing so much more effortless. It makes selling what you do much more natural. And it's actually what will make your business genuinely sustainable for the long run. Because then the people in your world are not just buying what you offer, they're buying how you see the world. They're buying into that. and they want to align themselves with you because they're clear about what you stand for and it's aligned with what they want to stand for. So the right people will keep coming back to it as long as your worldview is clear and consistent and true to you. And that's why worldview comes before marketing in the framework, because, and you'll hear me say this a lot, marketing's job is to amplify what already exists, what already works. And so if what exists is a clear, distinctive, courageous body of thought leadership work, marketing will amplify that. If what exists is generic, AI created, uncommitted content, then marketing's just going to make more noise with that. So we build your worldview first, then we let marketing do its job. So what does this layer look like when it's genuinely working? Well, it means that you know completely clearly and can articulate really easily what you stand for, what you're all about. And so will the people who follow you. So for you, it's going to feel like you've got things to say that feel important and true and specifically yours. And you're not really struggling to find content ideas because your worldview generates them naturally. Like every conversation, every client session, everything you read or observe or experience gets filtered through your distinctive perspective. And then that produces something to say. And you'll find that you start attracting people who think the way you think. Those people who are already looking for someone who sees it the way you see it, right? Potential clients, honestly, when they align themselves with your thought leadership, they're already half convinced to work with you before you even get on a call with them, honestly. And of course, the other side of that coin is that you're going to repel very cleanly the people who don't. And that's not a loss. It's just that whole ecosystem working properly, right? So as always, I've created a companion worksheet for this episode. But this time it's a bit different. You've got the companion worksheet to download, but you've also got a separate workbook, like I say, that I've kind of borrowed from another program that I want to share with you here because I do think it's a really good one. I'm not one for reinventing the wheel. If there's something that really works well, I'm just going to use that again. So I'm going to share that one with you. So links going into the show notes are going to be the link to download the book. So that's jillmokes.com/natural. Then also jillmokes.com/214. So that is your worldview companion worksheet. And then also there's going to be another link in there where you can download that special workbook that goes with this episode. The other thing I just want to mention before we wrap up is The Wild Way, my community for soul-led women. I mentioned it earlier on in this episode. I would love to have you join me inside. It's costing just £22 per month. And for that, you get on 2 live calls. We get together as a community a couple of times each month. We do it at full moon and at new moon. And it's going to be such a special container for us to really get to know each other and do our intention setting and our reviewing and reflecting. You know, that rhythm that I talk about all the time when it comes to rewilding your business. Getting in tune with a natural rhythm is something that made all the difference in my business. So I really want to share that with you as well now. And as my precious podcast listeners, I'd love you to be some of the first to come and join me so we can talk actually in person instead of just my voice between your ears. When I say in person, I mean on Zoom, obviously, that's practically in person. So yeah, if that sounds like something you would like to come and join me in, it's jillmokes.com/wildway. Again, I'll pop the link in the show notes. But yeah, go and have a look, see if that feels like something you'd like to be part of. And I hope it is, and I hope you'll join me. Our first gathering will be at New Moon on the 15th of June. And that's where we will be getting together to set our intentions for the 2 weeks after that. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, part 4 of our mini-series. Next week in part 5, we're going to be looking at the speaking up layer. And this is when we're going to really get into amplifying your worldview and getting yourself out there, visible and discoverable by those clients who need you in their life. Okay, have a great week. Bye for now.